Alright, another day, another exciting project. This time around we're going to be tackling the steering rack on the Foxbody Mustang. This particular steering rack is out of a 1991 Mustang GT, but from like mid 80s into 93 they were pretty much the same thing. I think there was only minor differences really. The biggest difference you run into is the gearing on the rack. So what we're going to be attempting to do today is take this power steering rack, and on a non-existent budget we're going to convert this to a manual steering rack. So never taken one of these apart, but I don't imagine it's awfully complicated. I mean, come on, it's an 80s Ford, for crying out loud. How bad can it be? So it looks like in here there's some kind of snap ring, and luckily ours is wound all the way down. I don't know if we can see. Yeah, we can see in there. So our rack is wound all the way down, which is good. It's going to give us some access in here. And let's start tearing into it. Let's make sure these still work. Yep. Okay. Find your little ears. Get in there. Oh yeah. There's a gear, and throw that out, never to be seen again. Now, if I imagine, there's probably something in here, if I had to guess. Some kind of snap ring as well. Let me see if I have the required tools to take this apart. Which, let's be honest, who does? Having the right tools is essentially cheating. So, let's see, there's a rubber-like seal right here, and I imagine it's not even a seal, it's more of a dust boot. Just because there's really shouldn't be too much pressure acting on this point of the steering rack, just based on how they're designed. There's a hammer. Come on. That probably sounds awful on the other end. I do apologize. Alright, well, you know what? We can tackle this from the other ends as well. So, we have this big old chungus over here, and this is so it's like a preloading, preset, pretensioning bolt, and this is the essentially housing / the retainer, and this is the actual bolt that sets the preload on the pinion. So let's see if we can crack this thing loose. Always use the right tools, kids. Firmly grasp it. Oh yeah, that's not happening. Hold on. So let's see what we can do. Everything's a hammer if you're strong enough. Come on. Ah! Hallelujah. Came off. But what came off? Alright, it occurs to me we might have been loosening the wrong thing this whole time. Let's try this. Yes. And there she comes. There's more efficient ways of doing this, I'm sure, but this is what we're doing apparently. Wait a minute. There's always a more efficient way of doing it. Well, there we go. So what do we have on this side? It's a spring. Some nasty grease on it. Some kind of nipple-like device. See if we can dig it out of there. Yes. Invented tools for this. There you go. I don't know how well I can see it, but that's what preloads your... Oh, I'm sorry, it doesn't preload the pinion, it preloads the actual rack. So let's put that... Spring's already gone. Incredible. There it is. Put that, and throw it out to never be seen again. Something tells me this big bolt has to come out too, so we're gonna give this a shot. How we're gonna do this? Oh. All right, here. Oh, this only ends in an emergency room. I'm actually amazed how well this is coming apart. Look at me just jinx myself there. That's just the cap, nothing else. Alright, so we didn't need that. What, is there a snap ring here is the question. No, but there is a nut. Look at that. See if our gun has the guts to break it loose. That'll be really convenient. We don't have to get creative with ratchets and extensions and breaker bars and whatnot. Where is the gun? Why is it never here? Oh, she still lives. Okay, are we in frame? Yeah, here we go. She wasn't happy about that. Nice! Came right off. It's great that I'm making this video. I can watch it and put it back together properly. Here we go. Now it's coming off. So now it should be a simple matter of just yanking it out of here. Along with that seal, maybe. Goodbye, my friend. That's the biggest issue with just... A lot of people just say, oh, just disconnect the power steering lines and loop them. There you go, it's manual rack. It really isn't, because there's still a lot of valving going on within the actual body of the rack. Steering gear, if you will. So now you can't simply loop the lines and expect it to work. It's far worse than that, because you will continuously run into resistance. Hey! At a cost, but we got it. And see, I was right. Oh, it's not just plastic. It's like a little bronze or whatever little tiny thing. And yeah, there it is. There's our snap ring retaining. Oh, why is everything so tight? There, I don't know if we can see that on camera. There's our snap ring retaining the pinion in place. Second one. Not all over the tools. Because there's nothing else retaining it. Haha! Minimal damage. I'm thinking, again, this is crazy talk, but I'm pretty sure we're just going to be able to reuse these seals, because once we're done with this thing here, it won't have really any more pressure in it. It's all just going to be this is going to be unrecognizable by the time I'm done here. I feel like there is a special tool that's supposed to pull this pinion out. Since we don't have it, don't intend on getting it. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the pinion. That simple. Okay, geez, not in the tool drawer. Which way? It's gotta go this way. Okay, here's one thing. And that's leading to another. There she is, in all her glory. So in case, ooh, look at that. This thing did not live an easy life. It's like a rust spot. That's interesting. This is what we're here for. This center seal right here. This is what's creating the pressure difference within the rack. When this pinion, I'm calling it pinion, I'm sticking with it. I'm pretty sure I'm right, but probably wrong. When this pinion is switching, so it's a two-piece design to where this is actually a separate shaft from this, and there is an almost imperceivable amount of play between them. Like, you're not going to be able to feel it with your hands, and you might not even be able to feel it in the car. But this determines which way the fluid goes in the rack, and there's only two ways for it to go, left and right, right and left. Is whichever way it goes, it starts acting, that side of the rack gets pressurized, and that makes it easier for it to turn that way. If the pressure is on this side gets pressurized, and the seal holds that pressure, makes it easier for the rack to go this way. So it's actually pretty simple concept, but very genius execution. I mean, we're in the year 2020 and we have long moved past the hydraulic steering. I mean, most cars on the market nowadays are some kind of electronic power steering. And we're going to get rid of this here. I'm not sure how we're going to end up tackling this. This looks like it's cast in there. It doesn't look like it was welded on at a later date. So we'll see if we can just break it off. Because if we can, that would be amazing. Alright, quick update. Actually, I lied. I did have equipment here to cut it off. I had a grinder laying around. And here's what we got. Man, this thing's still hot. So this was a one-piece. At first I tried just simple brute force to get it off. It didn't really work. So I made a couple of cuts across one side and across the other side, and then this thing just came apart. And what we can see over here is a remnant of some kind of a snap ring, and I bet you what this is assembly purposes. And I bet you the way this works when it comes down, yeah, I don't know how well it translates on camera, but on here it's fairly easy to see that these ridges here, they're tapered off to one side and they're flush on the other. So what happens is, down the assembly line at whatever factory they were putting this thing together, how was it? Which way did it go? I believe it went this way, right? So it was like this, and when it was coming down, as the machine was pressing it in, it would eventually slip over this ring, and this ring would contract momentarily just because it's tapered edge, and it would go over it and the ring would expand back up, locking it in place. So press in force of it would keep it there, but this is like a fail safe, which is not a word people use anymore because of legal reasons, but essentially a fail safe so that even if this pressed in the press in pressure or the press in force, the friction, I'm sorry, there it is, the friction between two materials wasn't enough to hold this bearing in place, this bushing, the seal, whatever you want to call it. If that friction was not enough to keep it in place, this ring would hold it. So what you want to avoid is that if the friction were to give out somehow and this seal would just shoot off to one side or the other side of the rack, it would just sit there and create uneven pressure and the whole thing would just not work. You could like lose power steering or your car start behaving strangely. So it's a very smart little feature to have this ring. And we're just going to put a ton of grease right around this surface, and we're going to put a ton of grease right on these teeth. And that's going to be it. There's not going to be any more fluid circulating through the rack, so it really won't need too great of a seal. And if honestly any little holes in the seals it might have would probably help it with venting out the pressure that builds from just gear teeth riding against each other. But considering that this thing only does about 3 full turns during, full left sweep going to the right sweep, it's really not that intense of a workload going into it. And another point to address, as I'm sure is going to get brought up, is the fact that this is a 2-piece shaft, and people will be concerned that, hey, maybe it's not very safe to be running a 2-piece shaft now into a manual rack. However, this is designed to go into millions of cars, and for those cars to drive hundreds of thousands of miles. So even if your pump were to fail and completely seize up the rack, it's designed to not break. And even if it does, there are interlocks within it that prevent it from just spinning freely. It's gonna be almost like a U-joint type of deal, to where it allows that slop back and forth enough for it to make pressure difference. But when that pin that retains it finally breaks, it's still gonna have the upper limit to where it can't possibly go further. So we're gonna run this manual rack when it's finally done with the U-joint. With a rag joint, and we're gonna see how it works. If it doesn't work, if it ends up disintegrating, we're gonna figure out some kind of U-joint setup. But for now, I am confident in that rag joint holding up for just, driving around town. We're not gonna be drifting with this setup. We're not gonna be doing anything, and don't really parallel park around here. So I'm sure it's gonna be okay. We're just gonna take it one step at a time and see how it works. But it's really this mod shouldn't really lead to any catastrophic failures that would endanger us here. But once again, this is only meant to be a proof of concept and just a show of an idea. This isn't really a step-by-step guide of how to do it. It's just, this is what's inside the rack. This is what I present to you. Take it for what you will. Take it as it is. I don't care. I'm losing my ability to speak. I'll catch you guys next time. All right, final update. Good news. I was able to polish out the little spot of rust. Now, there's still a bit of pitting I can feel with my fingers, but as discussed earlier, it's not going to be a problem because the seals really aren't going to be holding back any pressure. This is no longer going to be a pressurized vessel. Like I keep saying, there's not going to be any hydraulic pressure throughout this thing anymore. It's just going to be a simple manual rack. There you go. And that's it. Nothing else to it.